In Lansing, Michigan, a young man heads out to do a few hours of work in nearby Potterville. Recently engaged to a mother of two, any opportunity to earn some money seems like a blessing. But that blessing turns into a curse when the young man is never heard from again. No one has any idea where he is or what could have happened to him. Until the key to unlocking the mystery is found within a simple choice made years before, during one important hour. In the early autumn of 1985, Rodney Fancher receives a call about a possible job. He goes out to a bar in hopes of making his family some extra money and never returns home. He's reported missing by his girlfriend the next day, the same day in which a body is discovered in the next county over. Long before Rodney Fancher ever goes missing, he makes a choice that will stick with him for the rest of his life. Murder can sometimes be a product of environment. When a large group is sharing a small house, one more person can be all it takes to throw off established family dynamics and cause feelings of jealousy and resentment. And if these feelings are allowed to grow, the number of ways a situation can go bad is increased exponentially. Sometimes even leading to violence and murder. Often the violence seems to come out of nowhere, but the truth is, in some cases, it's carefully planned.
In the event of a sudden fit of anger, a murder that just happens from the circumstances within a very short period of time is usually second-degree murder. When there's planning, when someone goes to the extent of days or weeks or even 10 or 12 hours of planning where they do something ancillary, something extra, that's first-degree murder, and it can result in a life sentence. So in a simple analysis, planning versus no planning, that's the difference between the two murder charges.
When an unidentified body is found dead on the side of the road, the first thought is that it's the result of a random act of violence. Perhaps a robbery gone wrong. But as the investigation delves deeper, the explanations become far more sinister. It's in 1982 when Rodney and his mother get some new neighbors. Anna Bushard moves her family to Lansing, Michigan. Anna's living in a full house with her 3 children, her son-in-law, and her grandson. Rodney is in the Army at the time, leading to his coming and going for sometimes months at a time. But when he is back home, he and Anna's youngest daughter, Cora Bouchard, are hitting it off.
We learned that Rodney, coming home from the service there, met Cora next door, fell in love, started dating.
After Rodney returned home after a 7-month tour with the Army, Cora and Rodney decide it's time to take a big step in their relationship.
When he came back, they started getting very serious at that point. Rodney's mother, Mary Fancher, had a boyfriend she was living with. So when the opportunity presented himself, Rodney moved in with Cora Bouchard, and her mother and her son at the time, Cora's son, and Cora's sister, and Cora's sister's husband. That was quite a group of people in a very small house, quite frankly.
Cora's son, Brian, is from a previous relationship, and the father is out of the picture.
By all accounts, Rodney was delighted to be a father figure to Brian. Even though Brian wasn't his own son, he and Cora loved each other, and Brian was a huge part of Cora's life.
Cora gives birth to her second son, Brad. Rodney is not the biological father of this son either. But one is willing to look past this. And by 1984, he and Cora become engaged. Not only is he seen as a disruption to the already full household, but it appears he has plans that could split the family up. Rodney lives in Lansing, the capital of the state of Michigan. One story of how Lansing came to be involves two men from New York selling the land to those looking to find a new home.
The basic idea is that these two guys buy the land themselves, then go back home and sell off these plots at a profit. People pay believing that they're getting in on the start of a new city that they can really make their own. But when the new owners arrive, they discover that the land is on a floodplain and is underwater most of the year. It was all a scam.
This version of the founding of Lansing is a myth that persists about the city, based on twisting real events and stories of another failed city that was to be founded nearby.
It's interesting sometimes how these tall tales persist for generations, to the point where people start to believe that they're fact.
The truth is that Lansing was a small township that grew in size because of the decision to move Michigan's capital to a more central part of the state that is easier to defend.
What's on the surface of any event, if anything at all, is usually very small, such as the story of Lansing. And also, this is the story of Rodney's life.
When life gets complicated, it's always a good idea to take time for simple self-care. Even 1 hour alone, doing something that's just for himself, can work wonders for a man like Rodney.
Rodney is living in a small house with 6 members of his girlfriend's family. It's a situation where jealousy and animosity is festering.
Secrets and unchecked feelings can build as conspiracies come about amongst the group. It's also a situation where it becomes all the more important to find some alone time and relax. Like get a tattoo. Rodney goes to a tattoo shop where he meets an artist. He wants to get some work done, getting a tattoo on the inside of his right forearm. Rodney is close to his girlfriend Cora's sons, a fact that has sown distrust with the rest of her family. Peggy, her sister, and Harold, Peggy's husband, are especially having a hard time with the new dynamic of their home. Meanwhile, the family's matriarch, Anna, quietly keeps watch over the situation as it unfolds. Whether Rodney knows it or not, his life has reached a point where this kind of boiling point is not a question of if, but when.
There was probably some back and forth between Rodney and the artist as they make sure they are both on the same page.
Long after Rodney gets his tattoo, on the evening of October 3rd, 1985, he goes out to meet someone at a bar and doesn't return home. The next day, his girlfriend, Cora Bushard, starts making calls in hopes of finding him.
And when he didn't show up that night, the family members called the bar and said, hey, my boyfriend was there. He was driving such and such a car. And they said, yeah, the car's in the parking lot. At that point, the Potterville Police Department were notified that something's not right here.
The local police ask for the assistance of the Michigan State Police with this potential missing persons case.
It was a very small department, and anything they had going on, they usually asked us or the Eaton County Sheriff Department to help them out on. So I think it was that day they dropped by and said, hey, this is who we've got.
For Rodney, choosing a tattoo is a serious decision. It will be with him for the rest of his life. Soon after word is spread to be on the lookout for Rodney Fancher, a driver in Barry County pulls over when they believe they see an animal carcass next to the road. But when they get close, they discover that it isn't an animal at all.
A civilian found the body laying in the woods next to a road. The Barry County Sheriff's Department were called out and handled the scene that day.
The body is found outside Nashville, Michigan, a small town less than an hour's drive from Lansing.
When coming across a body, in my experience, we were taught it was a murder till we proved otherwise. So when you come to a crime scene, you always look for signs of a murder first, regardless if it's just a simple accidental death or even a car accident. You look for those other little signs that might make you think there's suspicious activity here.
The body is found with his wallet and keys still in his possession.
Robbery crimes are usually very impersonal. They take stuff, they do what they do, and sometimes they kill someone in the process. However, when you come across a murder victim that has their valuables on them, their keys, their wallet, their credit cards, you now change focus. This was not a crime of opportunity. This may have been planned and could have been a crime committed just to get rid of that person.
When Rodney picks out a horsefly design for his tattoo, it's one of dozens of choices he made throughout the day. What he couldn't have known is just how much this choice would affect the lives of other people after his death. In early October of 1985, Rodney goes out to a bar to meet a man looking to hire him to unload a truck. When he doesn't return home, he's reported as missing by his girlfriend Cora Bushard the next day. Soon after Rodney is reported missing, a call comes in about a dead body being found next to the road in Barry County. It's clear to police immediately that this was a murder. But what is far less clear is why. When Rodney has decided exactly what this tattoo is going to be, he is brought to the artist's chair so work can begin.
Even outside of the work of getting the tattoo itself done, there can be a lot of time spent doing things like preparing the tools and making sure everything is clean. Something as permanent as a tattoo isn't to be rushed.
While some life changes are prepped for, some can come out of nowhere, like when a large family moves in next door.
It's a complicated family dynamic when you have these people living in a very small house. You have to suddenly start analyzing who hates who loves who, do anybody love at all? And then from there, you can analyze what happened with the crime.
As hard as it was to have so many people living in one small house, even then there were moments of calm.
But sometimes, the moments of peace can be a calm before the storm, or the cleaning before the painful work of the tattoo begins. Cora's having called to make a missing persons report for Rodney leads to her being asked to come in and look at the body of the John Doe that's been discovered in Barry County.
To identify a body, there's many ways to do it. You have, with modern technology of DNA, fingerprinting. However, if you want to identify the body quickly, you have to use family or friends. It's a very emotional moment for both the police and the people, especially in the case of a missing person or when there's been a body that no one knows what it is. You have to call in a suspected family member, and sometimes there's relief if it's not the person that they're looking for. Otherwise, you have to go back to the drawing board and find more people to identify. It's efficient because it's a murder investigation or a missing person. You want to identify that body quickly without using the known forensic skills that you have to identify a body.
The artist applies a stencil of the tattoo to Rodney's arm. There is still time for him to reconsider his decision. Cora tells the police that Rodney was supposed to meet a man named Rich Hoover on the night he disappeared.
Actually, very early on, we did learn that Rodney Fancher had driven to the Blinker Lake bar to meet a truck driver who supposedly had gotten Rodney Fancher's name from a nearby truck stop, inquiring, if you need help unloading trucks, here's my name, here's my phone number, give me a call.
The Rich Hoover situation is weird from the beginning. For one thing, Rodney never left his name and number at a truck stop.
His future sister-in-law, Peggy Stevens, told him that she had put it there.
When Rodney gets a call from Rich Hoover, Peggy and Harold say that they left Rodney's number at the truck stop in hopes of helping Rodney find more work. They were trying to help him. Rodney listens while the artist describes the process she will use to apply the tattoo and what he can expect to feel. Rich Hoover asks Rodney to help him unload a truck. When Rodney agrees, they plan to meet at a local bar on October 2nd. But when that day comes, Rich calls Rodney again and asks to reschedule for the next day. On October 3rd, Rodney spends most of his day at his job as a farmhand. He comes home, gets himself cleaned up, and leaves again at 7:30 p.m. to meet Rich. Rodney's vehicle is still in the parking lot of the bar after he goes missing.
This seems to tell everyone that Rodney did in fact meet up with Rich and go off on this job. There were no reports of anything hostile going on in the bar that night, leading investigators to believe that Rodney got into his attacker's vehicle willingly. And it's a safe assumption. Rodney believed he was going off on a job with this man.
Rodney watches the artist prepare the needle and make sure it is in working order before she begins her work. While Rich Hoover is the prime suspect, there is no evidence to definitely identify Rodney's killer. But given the way he is left at the side of the road, there are theories on approximately how it may have happened.
Rodney is killed by a shotgun blast to the chest. Since it would be difficult to conceal or maneuver a weapon as large as a shotgun inside a vehicle, the most likely scenario is that they stepped outside. Rodney was shot and left there.
Rodney Fancher, his wallet is with him. His wallet contains money. His car keys are with him. It does not appear to be robbery is the motive. So you think, okay, he's targeted. Who wants to target him?
A member of the Barry County Sheriff's Department is sent to Lansing, where she investigates the last place Rodney is known to have gone, the truck stop.
At that point, we have a name, Rich Hoover, the trucker supposedly used. So we're trying to run down some information on Rich Hoover. She was in Lansing right away on Monday, checking at the truck stop with Rodney Fancher's picture, asking employees, asking truckers, asking mechanics, things like this. Anybody know Rich Hoover? Anybody seen this guy here?
But no matter how many people they ask, not a single person knows anything about a man named Rich Hoover. The investigation is in a place where Rodney's killer has no clear motive, and their only suspect doesn't appear to exist. An image of what happened to Rodney is forming. But unlike his tattoo, no one can quite make out what it is yet. Rodney's a man who fell in love with the literal girl next door, moving in with her and her extended family soon after. In early October 1985, he's found dead on the side of the road. As the investigation kicks off, the police search out Rich Hoover as their suspect. But outside of hiring Rodney for a job, no one seems to have ever heard of him. With initial leads reaching a dead end, it's time to expand the scope of the investigation in hopes of filling in the missing pieces of what happened to Rodney and how 1 hour of his life changed everything.
So you start performing what we call a victimology, or conducting a victimology, doing a background on Rodney in this case to determine who's he running with, who's he dealing with, is he involved in criminal activity himself, is he been seeing someone else's wife, whatever. You got to go that route basically and start identifying possible suspects.
One thing this means for the investigation is looking deeper into the people close to Rodney.
More often than not, it's somebody who knows the victim. Maybe they don't know them directly, but indirectly they do. They're down the street, or they're related, or they're in business where there's some kind of connection to the victim. It's not random. That's my opinion anyway, and I think most people that work these types of cases would say the same thing.
The artist begins the process of creating the outline of the tattoo on Rodney's arm. One place they look is Rodney's family life with Cora and the Bushards.
The investigation revealed that Cora had a 6-year-old son and a 2-year-old son, I believe it was, at the time when Rodney was killed. Rodney, when he moved in, assumed the father role to the oldest boy, who was named Brian. But before Rodney showed up, Harold Stevens and Peggy Stevens were the ones that kind of looked after young Brian and developed a real good relationship with him.
It comes out that Peggy and Harold had their own child who would have been around Brian's age. Sadly, they lost their daughter in 1979, at only 14 months old. This loss led to the couple moving back in with Peggy's family, and eventually to their closeness with Cora's child. When Rodney moved in, he presented a real shake-up to their family dynamic.
That's where the problem began, because once Rodney showed up, lived in a house, he started taking control of Brian from the standpoint of being the active father. Cora would be off doing her part-time job, Rodney would be taking care of him, and it was kind of like distancing himself from Harold and Peggy Stevens.
From Peggy and Harold's perspective, they were being cut out.
Jealousy can be a very powerful motivator when a child is involved.
Rodney watches the creation of his tattoo. The sting of the needle cutting into his skin is the price to be paid for a lifetime commitment. With a potential motive established for Peggy and Harold, the police look closer at their whereabouts on the night of the murder.
Probably a month into the investigation, we learned through phone records that we obtained through the court that phone records at Anna Bouchard's house received phone calls from Charlotte, and phone calls are made or received to Bay City, Michigan, which is probably 100 miles away. So that perked our interest because these calls are being made just within a day or two or the day of the murder and a little bit after it. So we got what we could to identify where those calls were made, and we learned that there's a man named Jim Oswald. A phone number was registered to him or leased to him in Bay City. We went and paid a visit to him.
What comes out is that Jim had once offered to help Harold find work driving a truck. On the night of Rodney's murder, Peggy and Harold go to see if this offer is still available.
So they did go to a bar, and they did, in fact, meet a guy there that was willing to pay Harold Stevens to drive some kind of a trailer or something from Elkhart, Indiana to Florida.
Rodney's hour-long session continues. Minute by minute, the artist brings Rodney's tattoo to life. The investigation concentrates on Cora's family. All the while, she is left to mourn her fiancé. She's left a single parent with 2 children to look after. Before Rodney's murder, He and Cora had plans to leave her family behind and find their own home.
A small house with 6 adults and 2 children is going to be a bit much for anyone, but there was added pressure on Cora.
She is the only one in the house to hold a regular job. It is up to her to pay the bills and keep everyone fed. The whole family is dependent on Cora and her job. Her moving out could mean trouble for all of them.
It's actually Brian, Cora's son, who unknowingly lets this plan slip.
And the reason is Brian had found a note with different apartment addresses on it. Not knowing what it was, he took it to Grandma Bouchard and said, "Look what I found."
But before the police can look deeper into this possible motive, there is an unexpected break in the case. Jim Oswald comes forward with new information. According to Oswald, Peggy and Harold Stevens drive to Bay City, Michigan, to see him on the night of October 3rd, 1985. They insist on going out to a bar where they will be seen. At exactly 8:30 p.m., Harold makes a toast and specifically notes the time. It's as if he wants people to remember that he was in Bay City at that time. The rest of the story of what Peggy and Harold did on the night of Rodney's murder comes out. They had very specific reasons for wanting to go to the bar.
He says, "We've got to establish an alibi. Let's go to a bar where you are known and that we can sit around and establish an alibi here because somebody's going to get hit tonight."
In an effort to explain, Harold and Peggy tell James Oswald that it's a case of vigilante justice. A child abuser being killed. James seemed to accept this story, and the next day, Harold and Peggy drive to Florida to pick up a trailer.
When Peggy and Harold Stevens returned from Florida, they went to Oswald's house, and they informed him that while they were in Florida, that Cora Bouchard's boyfriend was killed, and they made some incriminating statements to Oswald at that point that led to them being involved in it.
The creation of Rodney's tattoo continues. Any pain he feels is the price to be paid for a piece of art that marks a lifetime commitment. At least 3 people living with Rodney have potential motives in wanting him gone. And 2 of them went out of their way to establish alibis on the night of the murder. The picture is becoming clearer, but the question of who killed him is still missing an answer. When Rodney Fancher is found dead on the side of the road, the police search for the man he had plans to meet. But this quickly leads to a dead end, when no one seems to have heard of this man before. The investigation turns its focus on Rodney's fiancée's family, only to discover that most of the family could have motives for wanting him out of their lives. 2 of them seemed to know that Rodney was about to be killed, but what was their involvement, and who pulled the trigger? Rodney's hour continues to be spent sitting in the chair, getting his tattoo done. The longer it goes on, the more the needles repeatedly pierce his skin, the more irritating it becomes. It's an experience that seems to mirror how Cora's family felt about his inclusion in their lives. Jim Oswald's coming forward pushes the investigation back onto Peggy and Harold, leading to them being interrogated about their involvement in Rodney's death. Before Rodney's death, Peggy and Harold go to Anna about their problems with him.
Well, the investigation, when we got deeper into the family situation, revealed that the friction between Peggy and Harold Stevens and Cora and Rodney Fancher was getting pretty hot and heavy there. And the Stevenses were asking Anna Bouchard, the mother, to kind of intervene and kind of get things, on the railroad track in the right direction and everything like that. And the process of doing so, things didn't go that well.
They explained to her their initial plan on how to deal with him.
Let's have him beaten up. Let's have some bones being broken. so he can't take care of Brian anymore.
As a soldier, Rodney is no stranger to pain. Years of training have helped to increase his strength and endurance. It would take a lot to break him. Believing their plan will work, Harold contacts an old friend from school, Tony Hill.
There was agreement made between the Stevenses and Tony Hill that Tony Hill would beat up Rodney and break some bones.
Together, they come up with a plan for Tony to pose as Rich Hoover. He can get Rodney alone by promising him a job.
This is when Rodney gets the first call from Rich with a plan to meet on October 2nd. But then, the plan changes.
In spite of a little discomfort, Rodney can't help but feel excited for his future. And he tells the artist about his plans. He's also very pleased with the image taking shape on his arm. When Peggy and Harold bring up the plan to Anna, she doesn't believe it'll accomplish anything. After learning that Cora plans to move out with Rodney, she wants him out of their life.
Then we get to take care of them. By that point, when they come up with that plan, they shared that with Anna. Anna, at that point, says, that's not gonna work. You know, he's gonna get a lot of sympathy and that type of thing. Let's do him. Let's do him, man. Let's kill him.
It's Anna who changes the plan from beating up Rodney to having him murdered.
And at that point, Harold Stevens and Peggy got back with what turned out to be Tony Hill and said, change your plans. We don't want you to beat him up anymore, we want you to kill him.
Tony Hill agrees to the new plan, but it's going to cost them a lot more money.
The price is going to be $1,000. Hill wanted. They didn't have $1,000 to give Tony Hill. They slipped him some money, $100, and we're going to give you a motorcycle, an 8-year-old motorcycle, as a down payment, so to speak.
The tattoo artist tells Rodney that he's doing very well and that they are on the final stretch of this work. It won't be much longer. They should have this wrapped up in less than an hour. Pretending to be Rich Hoover, Tony calls Rodney and changes the date of their meeting. He'll take the extra day to prepare for the new plan. At 8:30 the next evening, Rodney meets Tony Hill at the bar. He gets in Tony's vehicle, believing this is all for a job.
The two smoke a joint as Tony drives. It's enough to keep Rodney from being too suspicious when Tony pulls over, claiming that he has more weed in his toolbox and just needs to get out and grab it.
But Tony doesn't pull out his toolbox. When he gets to the back of the truck, he grabs his shotgun.
During the interrogations, it comes out that Tony has a message for Rodney before he pulls the trigger. The last thing that Rodney heard was, "This is for the way you treated Brian. It's the way Grandma wants things done."
Four arrests are made for the murder of Rodney Fancher.
Peggy and Harold Stevens were arrested. Tony Hill was arrested, the shooter, and Anna Bouchard was arrested. So they're all charged with first-degree murder, all charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
Arrests are made, but just as with the progressing hour of inking Rodney's tattoo, the work isn't done yet. If there is going to be any justice for Rodney's murder, the case needs to be solid enough to be taken to trial. Rodney Fancher and Cora Bouchard have lived with Cora's family for 2 years. Prompted by Rodney's relationship to Cora's sons, and the two looking to move their relationship to the next step by finding their own apartment, Cora's family decides that Rodney needs to go. Cora's brother-in-law Harold contacts an old schoolmate to beat Rodney up. But when he and his wife bring the idea to Anna, Cora's mother, she tells him that isn't going far enough. and Rodney needs to be killed. The three of them, as well as Tony Hill, the shooter, are all arrested. But there is still work to do to get the conviction. Rodney reaches the end of the session with a new horsefly tattoo to show for it. When he first sees this new image that's been permanently marked on his body, there's no way he could have known what it would come to mean for the future. For one final push to guarantee the trial will go their way, the police decide to make a deal with one of the co-conspirators.
There came a point in time where, to get really more details on what we had enough to arrest and probably enough to convict, but we wanted more information. We chose Peggy, offered her immunity to testify against everybody else in this operation. And in fact, the charges were dismissed against her if after the statements that she gave us was the truth, and she's prepared to testify that through the rest of the court action. Well, actually, it took us twice to go back to Peggy. It was the second time we went back to Peggy did she really give us the scoop on her mother being involved in this.
The needlework may be finished, but the artist applies a bandage to protect his skin from infection. In the summer of 1988, both Tony Hill and Anna Bushett have their cases brought to trial. Peggy's testimony is the final nail in the coffin, and both defendants are convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. But Anna's time in court doesn't end with her conviction.
Because this is an interesting part. The murder in this case actually occurred in Berry County, but we tried the case in Charlotte, Michigan, which is Eaton County. And the reason was that part of the conspiracy took place in Eaton County, so they had jurisdiction if they wanted to. In this case, again, Berry County was having budget issues county-wide, so the prosecutor of Berry County said, hey, you've got jurisdiction in this case too in Eaton County, you go ahead and try it. So that's how we ended up in Eaton County with a trial. During the trial of Anna Bouchard, she was found guilty, but the case was appealed. The Court of Appeals ruled that the trial judge had made an error on that, so she had to be tried again.
Rodney watches the artist finish applying the protective bandage. His hour-long session is almost finished. Anna's second trial isn't held until 1993. She spends the years between waiting in a jail cell.
Along that line, Anna Bouchard is sitting in jail in Eaton County and made incriminating statements to two inmates in her cell, which eventually testified against her about Anna's role in the killing of Rodney Fancher. So she, in fact, was tried again in Charlotte, and she was convicted a second time, both of conspiracy to commit murder as well as first-degree murder.
It's brought into question if Harold is fit to stand trial at all. Because of this, his case isn't tried at the same time as Tony's or Anna's first trial. But to truly find justice for Rodney's murder, all of those most responsible need to see their day in court. It's a month after those convictions that Harold is found mentally sound and sees his own time in court. Like the others, Harold is found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Justice is found for Rodney's murder, but Cora's life can never be the same. Not only did she lose her fiancé, but she lost the relationship she had with her family through both their prison sentences and their actions against the man she loved.
I'm sure Cora thought right from the very get-go, and she eventually did say, I'm not sure if it was on a stand or to the media or to us, that she kind of wondered all the time about her sister and Harold's involvement in this.
The protective bandage for Rodney's tattoo is completed. All he must do now is pay the artist for her creation.
Cora's raising two young children who all at once lost a father figure, a grandmother, and an uncle.
And Rodney leaves behind his own mother. A difficult situation for any parent. The investigation spanned multiple counties, leaving a wake of people shaken.
The Fanchers and the Bouchards lived in Lansing, Michigan. But Potterville, they never had anything like this going on out there. That's a small community, so that's like all of a sudden they're part of this action. And then you've got Nashville, like 25 miles down the road. Right outside Nashville is where Fancher's body was found. So all of a sudden they're like, wow. And then you got the killer, it turns out, is from Charlotte, which is a very small town right in between Potterville and Nashville. And so, yeah, people in the rural counties, yeah, it's impactful on them. That's big news. That's the discussion in the coffee shops and the bars and that type of thing.
But the success of the whole investigation ultimately comes back to one decision Rodney made in the past. Rodney's body could have been declared a John Doe, never identified and left as a cold case. But his unique horsefly tattoo changes that. Rodney's choice to spend an hour of his life getting a tattoo will have repercussions that he can't possibly imagine. It will enable a loved one to identify him, even after he becomes unrecognizable. And that will lead to his killers being convicted and locked away. It will also ensure that his fiancée knows the truth about what happened to him, and allow the slow, painful healing process to begin.